Hi, I'm Shiv.
And I'm Chitra.
We are the co-hosts of this show, Software People Stories.
We're happy to bring you stories of people associated with software as makers or consumers.
In every episode, we talk to people on their own personal and professional journeys.
Their interests and approach to work and life in a free flowing conversational format. We hope that you will be able to draw your inspiration from their experiences and insights.
These podcasts are made possible by PM Power Consulting, who have helped individuals, teams, and organizations on their delivery excellence journeys.
My conversation with Madhavi Ravanan, services delivery leader at Nokia, went along paths less explored in terms of how people and technology have changed and yet acknowledged the fact that assimilation and learning happen in their own time. To me, our interaction turned out to be a very honest, down to earth conversation coming straight from the heart of someone who's navigated her career through a combination of plain good old hard work, picking up new roles and challenges, and that odd bit of timely luck. I'm inviting our listeners to tune into a walk down memory lanes of the days of telecom software from 20 years ago to what the future for new engineers might be. Welcome, Madhavi. It's a pleasure to have you on the Software People Stories. I am really looking forward to our conversation today.
Thanks, Chitra. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I'm equally excited about talking to you as you are with me. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Wonderful. So, we usually ask our guests to introduce themselves to our listeners. How would you like to introduce
Okay.
yourself today?
So, in the context of this podcast, maybe I would say I am a couple of decades in the technology industry now. I hail from Trichy, and I had the luck or God's grace to study in the engineering institution, NIT in Trichy. I passed out in the year 98 and I started my career off with developing software for telecommunication products. And I've done a variety of roles. While I started off as a telecom software development engineer, I moved on to do software project management, later on business development, account management, technology practice development, and now I do delivery leadership for telco cloud solutions in Nokia. So that's a brief gist of my career journey. On the personal front, I am married, have two boys. My spouse is also in the tech space, and that's what it is.
Thank you, Madhavi. In fact, I'm already thinking maybe a future podcast with you and your husband as a tech couple. Let's see when we can come to that.
Sure. Yeah.
You said luck and thanks to something to have gotten you into
Uh-huh.
NIT Trichy. What is it that
Okay.
made you choose, engineering as a course of education, and what,
Okay.
got you into the software industry?
Oh yeah, beautiful question. But the answer is not going to be as beautiful, I guess. I had zero exposure into career options beyond 12th standard. The only thing that I'm able to recall is I used to be a very hardworking person. I used to study hard, and so naturally I was the pet for a number of my teachers. So I kind of, and my family used to keep saying that they wanted a doctor in the family. So I was really keen on pursuing medicine as my career choice. So what happened was after the 12th standard, there was an entrance examination. Back then we used to have a common entrance examination at TN state level, and some of the papers like biology was applicable for medicine, while maths was applicable for engineering. Physics and chemistry were common for both streams. I wrote all the papers, and unfortunately, something went wrong with my entrance scoring, and my cutoff for medicine was way below what I could hope for to get a seat in a medical college through merit. So, but then for engineering, I was meeting the bar, and I got admission initially in the Tyagarajar College of Engineering. I spent about a month and a half there, and after that, there was this option to have reallotment to your home location based preference or so, because NIT Trichy back then was had few seats which were left unfilled, luckily, in our category. So I successfully or thankfully or whatever luck means, I got reallotted into REC Trichy. Oh, sorry, it is now NIT Trichy. So that is all is the story. I think back when I was studying, I felt that I had to be working hard because I would say we were a lower middle class family. Our father was in government job, and it was just paycheck to paycheck kind of livelihood. And we felt if we didn't study, the future was just not there. So that was all was the drive to study. And the decision to choose engineering, I don't think it was a conscious decision at all in my case. I just wanted to work hard. I wanted to go into medicine. When medicine did not happen, I remember I cried and cried for maybe 2 days, and later, I consoled myself and I picked up and I went after what I got back then. And I thoroughly enjoy. Looking back, I feel the 4 years we spent in campus had been the one that shaped each of us into what we are today. So that institute gave me a great platform, is what I would say.
Thank you, Madhavi. In fact, you said you have been a very hard worker and started out life as a telecom developer.
Yeah.
Any things that stand out from those early days of
Oh,
developing
yeah.
code and writing code that you would like to share with us?
I mean, I would say those were the days, those were the glorious days of the technology industry in itself, I would say. There was time, and there weren't these digital distractions. There was so much of bonding. Or maybe when you are an entry level engineer, you tend to build a lot of relationships with teams. And I know back then this industry wasn't the kind of ocean that it is today. So the kind of talent that came in was really high caliber. And in fact, one of the juniors, we used to be mentoring juniors. Even now we have the mentoring practice here. So I used to mentor a junior. She had come from Pondicherry Engineering College back then. She used to be solving problems in a jiffy. So we used to name her. We named her Puyal. Puyal in Tamil. I mean, it's a Tamil word. So in English, it means storm or tornado, right? She was that fast. So the quality of talent that came into the industry back then was class apart, is my view, vis-a-vis the reality of the industry today. So that's, and getting to work was so much of excitement back then, because of the both with the nature of work, because we started off with product engineering. So we had to understand telecom standards, we had to understand the entire call processing software for the branch exchange software, that private branch exchange switches that we were dealing with. And there was a huge lab with all the racks and telephone equipment back then. So we could visit the, I mean, when I started off, it was Wipro as an organization. The customer's site was in Canada. We were spending a lot of time in their labs there. So I felt the combination of, or the excitement of writing software that ran on hardware, and getting to see the results on phones. We used to make phone calls to see if the caller ID was getting displayed. We were implementing features to hide caller IDs for personal numbers and so on and so forth. So I still cherish those early days of developing software. We had time to learn and implement. Today I feel, though we are at the cutting edge or bleeding edge of technology and processes today, I feel the sheen is gone, because you are in a rush and you don't have the luxury of time. And of course we have learned efficient ways of working, and we are building more sophisticated solutions in much shorter lengths of time. But personally, I feel the excitement quotient has gone off the window over a period of time. I shouldn't be saying that, but if you want me to compare how life was 20 years ago and now, I feel that excitement and the feeling of being pampered, back then, if you were in the technology space, you were really like royalty, not anymore now.
Interesting views, Madhvi.
Yeah,
I have a
yeah.
question which I'll definitely come
Mhm,
back to later. But first, I want to
mhm,
ask you, I was just going through a little bit about your background, and looks
mhm.
like you've done a variety of roles across various functions like development,
Right,
business development, marketing. Can you share, some of your experiences while you did this?
right.
And how did you
Okay.
manage playing all these multiple roles?
Again, I think somewhere I read, I think it's from Ravi Venkatesan's book or interview. He made a statement there: you will not be able to foresee your life, you will only be able to look back and connect the dots. That struck a chord with me. So I am recalling it here because this particular question that you asked, it wasn't something that I had intentionally pushed or pursued aggressively, but it came as an opportunity to me. So I was growing up from being an engineer to a software delivery project manager. I was leading a large team. We were developing and delivering software for layer 2, layer 3 switches and routers. I think back then we were a team of about 45 odd, both developers and test teams put together. So that project just got over, and then my boss called me and he was saying that, see, in the business development team, he had a friend in the BD organization, and he said that in the BD team there's a position coming up, and his friend was asking for a suitable candidate from project management background. So my boss was telling me that, I see that that would be a good fit for your capability. Would you like to pursue that? Was a question he asked me. Then I said, are you trying to gracefully throw me out of your team by telling me this? That's what I asked him. He said, no ma'am, you can still think, and I'm just giving that as a choice to you because I feel you will make a good fit there. So then I went back, I checked with a couple of my friends, my former bosses, and many of them were positive about it. And I also came to know, typically a lot of people go after such roles and it doesn't come easy to them. So that's how then I spoke to my future boss. He gave a full explanation of how in delivery you focus on, what to say, you have visibility into a limited window, but while when you are part of BD, you get exposed to the full business cycle in the organization. So that kind of excited me. Then I thought, why not give it a try? So I went in, and I would say I enjoyed that stint a lot. I think I did BD for like 3-4 years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it because it opened me up to one, customers, to the market, to other functions in the organization. So we were really anchoring things across the company and also with customers. So that was phenomenal experience. If I had stayed back only doing a delivery role, my perspective would have got limited to, let's say, the operational challenges in delivering what customers are asking for and things like that. When I took up this external facing role, I felt my perspective also broadened, and it added immense value when I switched back to delivery more recently, like 3 years ago. When I joined Nokia, it was into a delivery leadership role. So when you do a market facing role and then come back into delivery, you're a completely different person. You can understand both sides of the world and hence balance the way you'll handle different situations. So that's the advantage. So in summary, the answer is, again, I did not go after it, and it came to me, and I ended up enjoying that role. And from then on, after business development, I did technology practice development, where we incubate new ideas and develop small solutions and win businesses in adjacencies. That happened more as a natural evolution. My boss from business development was going to lead the practice organization, so I moved along with him into that role. So that's the story.
Nice. In fact, curious to know, and perhaps this is also an area that excites me, having come from a product development background, is incubating
Mhm.
new ideas specifically to see if there are adjacencies. Can
Hmm.
you illustrate with a few
Sure.
examples of how you were able to, gain access to new markets or open up
Okay.
newer opportunities for business this way?
So back when I was doing this role, software-defined networking was the hot area that was picking up in the networking and communications business segment. So we had to figure out what kind of, and the organization where I was working was into building and offering, I mean, building software frameworks and licensing them to product vendors. So we had to figure out what kind of software frameworks will our customers need, and then build a POC around that theme and take it to customers, demonstrate it, figure out, get their responses, then formalize it for further development, etc. So then we picked up an open source implementation and we integrated that with our existing protocol stacks that we had within the company, and we integrated it, built a small solution around it, and it fell within the definition of a proof of concept for software defined networking. Then we took it to a bunch of customers. There was feedback coming in. The fact that we could engage them in demos established to them that okay, these guys really know what's happening in this space and they will be our trusted advisors for our own work in the space. Was all was needed. You don't really expect money to start pouring in immediately, but you have to be seen as a trusted advisor by your prospects or customers, which happened within, let's say, a 6 to 9 month window. We had to start off with what we wanted to build, and then build a small POC with the frameworks we had with open source plus a solution around it, and then demonstrate it to customers, seek their feedback, and further fine tune our offering and take it forward. Eventually, we did make commercial wins out of it within a decent time frame, I would say. So that's like what do you say? It gives you that kick of okay, you know how to navigate the market and you can make things happen, right? So that gives you a high.
In fact, when you mentioned, perhaps people really don't have time to learn. What would you do differently today to sort of bring back the sheen in people
Okay.
that you hire newly on board today?
Okay, so maybe I should rephrase the statement I made. I don't think I should offend this generation. They're all bright and creamy. I know my children know far more than I do on topics that I discuss at home. So when I say the talent isn't creamy today, what I meant is as an overall industry, we have bloated so much here that, you know, uh,
Mm.
20 years ago, if somebody told me that they are in tech, I would have a subconscious assumption that okay, this person is really a qualified a talented engineer on the higher side of the talent spectrum. Today, if somebody tells me they are in the tech industry, I have no expectation. That's the difference between 20 years ago and now, that I would say. This doesn't mean in the current scenario we don't have talent in the industry. Of course, there are classy engineers, only that industry as a whole has bloated, and hence the variety of or the nature of work that we deliver in the tech space is also varies widely. So naturally, we don't need highly qualified talent to perform every kind of job that the tech industry delivers today. So that was my view. I'm sure today's talent is far stronger and far knowledgeable than those of us who learned the traditional way in the past. The second part, what would I do differently today? I think for leaders and managers, what is critical is how do you make sure your team's distractions are kept to the minimum? How do you build their competence and keep them ready for the future? uh, and how do you keep them focused? How do you uh, I grew up in the waterfall era. How do we re-educate or get the people doing project management to adopt agile and DevOps practices? So these are the challenges that today's managers and leaders have to address, is my view, Chitra. I don't know if I answered your question in its entirety, but one thing that I want to withdraw is, I don't mean to say today's talent is not good. That's not the statement, but 20 years ago, the industry was very small. We were doing only product engineering or R&D kind of work back then, but now industry has grown. I mean, in a way, it is good for the country. When someone says that they are in the tech space, we cannot make any inference about what nature of work, because I even today when I attend weddings in remote cities, I get asked, okay, do you do the night shifts? I really feel offended when people, okay, so do you do nights?
No,
That's a bit
in
of a
fact,
funny thing, but
my question was more on sense of, like you
hmm,
said, it's different.
yeah,
In the context of, yes, we have a lot more engineers today, but we have that much
yeah,
more variety in work, like you said.
hmm,
Managing those pieces, learning those different kinds of things, I'm sure takes its own toll. Eventually, what really works with customers takes its own cycle time, and there is no way of really
exactly,
predicting how quickly something
exactly,
can go viral, or how
right,
slowly people take time to adopt the technology. So when I was trying to put
right,
that back to perhaps how
hmm,
people learn or view technology today, I think that was
right,
where the question was coming from, but this turned
yeah,
out to be a
exactly,
very
yeah.
lively discussion.
I have been using the word DevOps myself for, let's say, 2-3 years now, and the first time or maybe even longer, I'm not able to recall. The first understanding of DevOps I gained was by reading that book, The Phoenix Project. That gave a great understanding. Since then, I have been carrying this subconscious belief that DevOps is all about continuous integration, continuous deployment, and operations all integrated in one go. And I went into a more immersive training last year, so where my belief was slightly shaken up. DevOps doesn't start only at the integration phase; rather, it starts in the way you architect your product. It's all microservices based architecture, so you can quickly build additional capabilities and deploy them as new services, right? So if this is the reality, it really takes this much amount of time for somebody who has been in the industry. I mean, I may be the weaker link here, but this is reality, right? I've been
Yeah,
using the term, but I got that immersive understanding only as recent as last year. So we can, and I always knew, Google rolls out product upgrades as often as maybe daily they are upgrading one of their 2000 products. I don't know, but if they can do that so fast, why are our software releases not matching up with that pace? If we have to match the pace, then we have to be on DevOps. So we always knew the theory, but to get down and understand the details and implement and the products to function well, it does really take the time. So I think that's the biggest challenge in this totally disruptive environment that we are in. Your competition is not really established players. Your competition can come from any nook and corner of the world, any small organization. So I guess it's a very challenging environment in the industry right now.
completely agree with you there. There's one point that struck me about when I looked up your LinkedIn profile, and you
Mhm.
said that you've seamlessly worked with several stakeholders.
Hmm.
What has worked for you there, and perhaps a little bit about what has not worked?
It has worked well for me. When I work, I will recall an experience. There was this massive deal that we were working on in my past role, where I was the BD manager, and it was a multi-year, multi-product line R&D ownership transfer from a customer into my organization. So this is what we were working on. So in these deals, you have to to negotiate the different terms in your services agreement. Only then you can go in. So it always starts with a initial MOU, in principle agreement between the two organizations. Then you go on and nail down the finer terms. So this is where the role of BD manager becomes very crucial. You should have that ability to negotiate and reach an agreement which will have the buy-in from all parties involved at your end, and your counterpart on the other end should seek buy-in from relevant stakeholders within that organization. So we used to have daily calls to negotiate the terms. Some of them were just between the two business teams, some of them between involving engineering teams, and we were still left with a bunch of points where we had not reached an alignment even after considerable number of days and discussions, both F2F and calls, etc. So I would directly call the one decision maker, whoever I felt was the right person to make that decision, or who is the one who has the maximum authority to sign off on a term. And I just called him and said, this is a way, if we can define it in this way, then I think we can move forward. Otherwise, I don't see a way for this to conclude at all. So, in most cases, I would say the colleagues that I've interacted with in the industry have been very rational. So, and even when I had been a project manager, I always have felt comfortable in just picking up the phone and talking to my customers. So it's again that the proximity or customer intimacy that you develop, that's what helps you in achieving your goals. I don't mean you end up being disloyal to your counterparts or customers, but rather you be candid and be open, and then you share your situation. Naturally, the other party is also reflective of the same behaviors that you show. I have believed in just calling, speaking, and seeking their views, in formal meetings and calls where n number of people are on the bridge. It doesn't really help us conclude fast. There had been cases I've always handled them one to one. It has helped me.
Thank you. If I can, reflect upon simple back to basics, one-on-one conversation with
Yeah,
the right
exactly.
people, and that connect could, potentially change the direction of how a project goes. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, exactly. One other point also I'm getting reminded, Chitra, because you just mentioned you were looking over my LinkedIn profile. That's one thing that I do before I interact with anyone who I know only at name level. This was another tip probably I learned from my boss during my BD role, I guess. So before going into a call, because invariably we are joining calls with people who we have not interacted with in the past. So we'll only get to see their email addresses. Then I pick up the name, I go into LinkedIn. So this has kind of become a habit now. Now, even within the company, when I have to talk to a new colleague, I try and get an idea of what background that person is from, so I can stitch my language accordingly in my interactions with him or her. And I say it immensely helps to quickly align with the person. That's a great career tip I'll give to people.
I'm sure many will pick that tip up, and if there's definitely listening to this podcast, that's a good one. Thank you, Madhavi.
Yeah.
Are there any messages that you would like to leave listeners with, whether it's people choosing their careers in technology or choosing specific roles versus like what you did, took up challenges and opportunities that presented themselves in different departments or different roles? Are there messages that you would like to leave our listeners with respect to either of these or both of them?
Right. I think we will have to constantly reinvent ourselves. Personally, I feel 18 months to 2 years kind of window is a window that you can do a certain job profile. So outside of that, you should always explore opportunities around. I would say one should get exposed to the different functions in an organization, and I would also say we should not be bothered so much about whether a move is horizontal or vertical or tangential, so long as you're going to be excited doing that. I have been in situations, I was assessing a few opportunities, at least a couple of opportunities that came my way, which was promising. Of course, these were internal roles which would promise me the next pay grade, but somehow that role did not strike a chord with me. So I just let it go. I was also talking to a couple of my trusted friends, and the collective view that we came to was, if I'm able to visualize myself doing that job in an excited manner, then I'll go after it. I don't think money should be the driving decision when we pick up roles, is my view. If there is learning involved, and if you're going to be excited about it, if there is going to be potential for growth with what you will get to do there, then I think we should go after those roles. Or if you are totally bored in what you're doing, then it's high time we have to seek change. And I feel, I'm sure folks these days are more risk taking. I think we should look at our careers as roller coaster rides, and we have to look at risk taking. I don't think anything is a serious sin. You can always fall back on your skills and spring back whatever changes you make. That's my view. A change always helps, and my view is 18 to 2 years kind of window is what you can excitedly perform a role. Then you have to look for what additional things you can do, whether in the same role you pick up additional responsibility, do some initiatives, run some initiatives as a side track along with your mainline responsibility, or pick up a different role. And that's what I would recommend. People should also constantly keep learning. Fortunately, in our era, we could survive with not so much learning. Of course, we learned a lot about technology and newer standards that are coming up and solutions around that, and implemented it over the last 20-year period. Now, for the next generation that will just come into the industry, I don't think they're going to have the luxury of learning something in their education as part of their graduation or masters, and then survive with just those skills for all through their career. They will have to constantly keep learning and reinventing themselves.
Certainly, I think
Yeah.
things are excited to actually look forward and see what's going to come around the corner.
Right.
Certainly, there's always something to learn, like you said. Thank you, Madhavi. This has been a wonderful conversation. So, thanks a
Sure.
lot for your
Certainly.
time.
Thanks so much, Chitra. Thanks for the opportunity, and fantastic talking to you too. Thank you.
If you like the show and would like to share your experiences with the community, or know someone else who might want to do that, please get in touch with us at podcast@pm-powerconsulting.com. That is podcast@pm-powerconsulting.com.
Please rate the show on Podchaser, Stitcher, iTunes, or any other podcast client that you find us on. Please also share our episodes with your friends and others in your network. If you or anyone you know would like to be featured on our show, do write to us at this email address: podcast@pm-powerconsulting.com.